Welcome to the JMC True Crime channel. Thank you so much for joining me. The definition of a mass murderer is someone who kills a number of people either simultaneously or over a relatively short period of time. Mass murderers live next door to someone, and Amy, the subject of today's case, could have been living next door to you. So, strap in and let's get stuck in. By all accounts, Amy Bishop was born into a loving family. In 1965, when she entered this world, her parents absolutely adored her. And when she was 3 years old, her younger brother Seth joined the family, and this made them complete. Now, it was the 4 of them. The family lived in Braintree, Massachusetts, and were very close-knit. Amy and Seth shared a love of music and science, and so that helped to strengthen their sibling bond. Given that Amy was born and raised in Braintree, naturally, she attended Braintree High School and then went on to complete her undergraduate degree at Northeastern University in Boston. Her father, Samuel Bishop, was a professor in the arts department, so she still had family nearby. She also earned her PhD in genetics from Harvard University. For those that are unaware, a PhD stands for Doctor of Philosophy. It's a doctoral research degree and the highest level of academic qualification you could achieve. It's certainly very impressive that Amy achieved this, and it's a clear indication of her intelligence. During this time, Amy had met and married James Anderson, hyphenating her name and becoming Amy Bishop Anderson. They went on to have 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. In 2003, and now living in Alabama, Amy joined the faculty of the University of Alabama's Department of Biological Sciences. She joined as an assistant professor. She had been teaching 5 courses, so her schedule was quite hectic, and she and her husband James had even came third in a technology competition and won $25,000. That was certainly no small feat. The married couple had created a portable cell incubator, and the president of the university was thinking that possibly this invention could change the way that biological and medical research would be conducted. But others didn't necessarily agree. Some scientists deemed it too expensive and unnecessary. Amy also had 3 unpublished novels. One of those novels featured a female scientist working to defeat a virus and struggling with suicidal thoughts at the threat of not earning tenure, aka guaranteed permanent employment. Perhaps this was Amy channeling her own thoughts and fears through the written word. Amy was known to be quite unpopular amongst her students. They found her to be ineffective and odd in general. If she didn't dismiss her students directly from her lab, plenty of them would transfer themselves out of their own accord. Several students complained on numerous occasions. However, this didn't lead to any change. Nothing changed. In March of 2009, Amy was denied tenure, and this was a crushing blow to her. This meant that she couldn't expect her teaching contract to be renewed after March of 2010. She did appeal the decision, but it didn't go in her favour. Amy was described as bizarre, out of left field, and most notably, crazy. Upon learning that her tenure had been denied, and that a colleague had referred to her as crazy, Amy filed a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Amy's complaint was founded by an accusation of sexism. She believed that the only reason she was being called crazy is because she was a woman. Just a quick footnote before we go on. Regardless of someone's sex or their gender, don't call people crazy. It's incredibly dismissive and demeaning, and it really just undermines whatever it is that a person is going through, and we could all stand to be a little bit more compassionate. Anyway, that's just my opinion on the matter, and I should also say that that is in no means meant to be a defence of Amy, as you'll learn what she would later go on to do. So, Amy's tenure has been denied, and she's made this complaint alleging sexism from having been called crazy, and the professor, the colleague that made the comment, didn't back down. They doubled down. The professor said, and I quote, "I said she was crazy multiple times, and I stand by that. This woman has a pattern of erratic behaviour. She did things that weren't normal. She was out of touch with reality." The 12th of February 2010 came around. It was your average day, and it was also just a month shy of when Amy's teaching contract would conclude. Amy taught her classes, which were anatomy and neurosciences, and a student would later say that she seemed perfectly normal. Now, in the Shelby Center for Science and Technology, a biology department faculty meeting was being held on the third floor, and Amy went to attend the meeting. There were about 12 or 13 people in this meeting, so it wasn't too large of a gathering, and Amy went, and she sat quietly for about 30 or 40 minutes. Just before the clock struck 4 p.m, Amy got up. Rather suddenly, she took a gun out of her purse, and she started shooting. She wasn't shooting to maim, she was shooting to kill, execution style. As she moved down the rows, she would shoot the person closest to her. She ultimately shot 6 people, and 5 of those 6 immediately fell to the floor. DEBRA Moriarity, a biochemistry professor, said that Amy pointed the gun at her, aimed for her head, and pulled the trigger. Expecting this to be her end, Deborah was both surprised and relieved to have only heard a click. It seems that Amy's gun had either jammed or run out of ammunition. Deborah and other survivors then pushed Amy from the room and blocked the door. Deborah saved a lot of lives that day. Sadly, the lives that couldn't be saved were those of Gopi Padilla, who was a chairman of the biology department, Maria Ragland Davis, an associate professor of biology, and Adriel D. Johnson Sr., also an associate professor of biology. Louis Cruz Vera, Joseph Leahy, and Stephanie Monticciolo thankfully survived. After all of this irreparable damage had been done, Amy was quickly arrested. When questioned about the death of her colleagues, Amy was quoted saying, "It didn't happen. There's no way. There's no way. They're still alive." Once Amy had taken out that gun, fired those bullets, and killed 3 people, she became a mass murderer. A few minutes prior to her arrest, and once Amy had realized that the gun was no longer usable, she ran to a bathroom to dispose of it. She threw it in a trash can, tried to clean herself up, and then called her husband James and asked him to come and collect her. He agreed, and while she was waiting for him to arrive, that is when she was apprehended. The police did interview James, although they did not charge him. During this interview, James revealed to the police that prior to this incident, he had recently accompanied Amy to a shooting range. With Amy in custody, the natural question to ask is why? Why did she do this? What compelled her to do this? Whilst we can say, or better yet, whilst I can say, I'm glad that more people weren't harmed, 6 people were, 3 of them killed, and that's 6 too many, that's 3 too many. So why? After doing some digging into Amy's background, the police were surprised to learn of an incident that took place in 1986, when Amy was only 21 years old. You'll remember that Amy had a younger brother named Seth, a brother that she was quite close to. They were only 3 years apart. In 1985, the family home had been broken into, lots of their items had been stolen, such as jewelry and other valuables, and in an effort to protect the family, Samuel, Amy's father, purchased a 12-gauge shotgun which he kept unloaded in his bedroom closet. And on the 6th of December 1986, something devastating happened. Judy, Amy and Seth's mother, was preparing lunch in the kitchen. Seth was assisting her, and that's when Amy came downstairs with her father's shotgun in her hands. Despite Samuel's resolve for the shotgun to remain unloaded, at that moment in time it was very much so loaded, and so when Amy came down the stairs, she needed Seth's help to unload it. As Amy was moving the gun around, it went off. It fired a 12-gauge round into her brother's chest, and Amy, in a panic, fled the house whilst still holding the gun. The police were called and Amy was quickly found. Her account to the police is that it was an accident. She didn't mean to shoot her brother, she said. Sadly, Seth lost his life as a result of this. He died very shortly after he was shot. Amy was then released back into her family's custody, and the coroner ruled her brother's death as an accident. The family continued to live in that same house where their son/brother died, and Amy did not undergo any counselling or speak to anyone about the incident. On the 24th of September 2012, Amy was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I think what fascinated people so much about this case is that, from the outside looking in, Amy Bishop appeared to be a woman that had it all together. She was intelligent and educated, she didn't have a criminal record, there weren't any known mental health problems, and it didn't seem like there were recent life events that would have triggered her. So what is it that caused her to crack? Was it the denial of tenure? Was it the stress of maintaining a work-life balance with 4 children at home? Or was it something far more insidious than that? After all, this isn't something that just happened in the heat of the moment. She went into that university knowing she had a gun in her purse. She executed 3 people, shooting them in the head. She then tried to dispose of the murder weapon. I think the case of Amy Bishop is a perfect example that you never really know what's going on with someone, and no one really knows what's going on with you. Alright, it's that time again. Thank you so much to everyone that made it to this point in the video. I am always so grateful. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button and that you're turning on the YouTube bell so you're aware of every time we post, and I will be catching you soon. Peace.